Like many people, Avatar: The Last Airbender is one of the best shows I have ever experienced as a child and even into adulthood. It is one of those special pieces of art that utilizes the power of animation to make a well-crafted, elevated, mature, and meaningful story. Not only is the storyline amazing and it being one of the most beautiful things to grace the television screen in the last decade, its characters are also one of a kind. The characters and their meaningful relationships really take the overall story and elevate it in a way that makes you feel like you're a part of the gang, right? It draws you in, it makes you care about what's happening to even the least occurring character. And that isn't just my exaggeration either. You could throw a dart at any YouTube search and find multiple videos about Zuko and his arc and relationship with his grandfather alone, right? And his story has been held in high regard and is some of the most praised writing since the show aired, And he is just one character. You could search Avatar and believe me, you would find more than enough about who these characters are and why they are so amazing. And my girl Toph is not excluded from this love. Now, for those of you who do not know or who are not aware of the animated show, and you are jumping in because you maybe saw the new live action is up and on Netflix, and you may not know about Toph and the rest of the gang. So I'm here to give you a very quick rundown. Avatar: The Last Airbender takes place in a fantasy world where human civilization is divided into 4 nations: the Water Tribe, the Earth Kingdom, the Fire Nation, and the Air Nomads. Each nation has its own natural element, and there are people known as benders who have the innate ability and power to control and manipulate the elements of their nation. So those corresponding 4 would be water bending, earth bending, fire bending, and air bending. Now, each generation yields one person who is capable of controlling and manipulating all 4 elements, and this is the Avatar. And also how we meet Aang, right? We are introduced to Aang. He is 12 years old, and we are just finding out that he is the Avatar along with himself, and he must go away from his family and friends and learn the other elements because there is a war that is brewing. Distraught and scared, Aang, he ends up running away, and he's caught in a storm and trapped in an iceberg for the next 100 years. 100 years later, though, we meet Katara and Sokka, 2 Water Tribe siblings, and find that Aang is in the iceberg, and they let him know that during his absence, the Fire Nation had waged war upon the other nations and managed to completely wipe out the Air Nomads. Now knowing that he is the last airbender and that the Fire Nation is on track to take over the other nations, Aang, Katara, and Sokka set off to help him master the other elements to end the war and defeat Fire Lord Ozai. Now, when we are introduced to Toph Beifong, it is in season 2, as the gang is searching for an earthbending master. Toph is a young girl who has been blind since birth, and this has led to her parents, Lau and Poppy Beifong, to treat her as a helpless young lady instead of recognizing that she is capable of taking care of herself. Her disability does not hold her back, though, from learning how to earthbend, as she finds badger moles who are the original earthbenders. She learns how to use earthbending as an extension of her senses, which empowers her and gives her the ability to see through the vibrations that pass through the ground. The team hears of an underground fight ring as they arrive to Gaoling, and they decide that they are going to ask the strongest person there to help Aang. Now imagine their surprise when a 5-foot, and that's probably being generous by the way, girl steps into the ring and basically murks everybody in a matter of moments. And if I remember it correctly, once she defeats one of the biggest men that night in a matter of seconds, all the jaws in the audience hit the floor. And if the camera was in my room that night of the premiere, they probably would have seen me looking just like the audience, right? So we know as soon as possible that she is nothing to play with, okay? And after the team approaches her and offers her the position, she initially refuses to join the team, but she's ultimately convinced to come with them after she realizes that she'll never gain the confidence and independence from her parents that she is so desperately craving. Once she joins the team, you really see them take off in a way that they weren't before, not only physically, but emotionally as well. One of the most beautiful things about this show is that no one is weak, even with a supposed weakness. Everyone has a powerful side to them and a soft side to them. Bending or no bending, everyone is or becomes a badass in their own right. And everyone has a place, and Toph is no different. You can tell immediately how different she is from Katara or Aang emotionally, and that appealed to me specifically as a kid. Now, Aang and Katara speak to the kind and gentle ideology of the show, and I love Katara down, but out of our gang, she's definitely like our girly girl through and through. She loves to feel and spread warmth and goodness, and she's definitely the nourishing character of our bunch. And don't get me wrong though, Katara, our girl, she can throw down, but she fulfills like the girly elements that we experienced through the show, and we really love that about her. And Aang too, he believes that all life is sacred and wants to include everyone and have a good time. But Toph, ooh, she liked to spit on the ground and not shower every day, and she looked out only for herself, well, at least at first. She didn't care about the group and focused on doing whatever she wanted outside of being Aang's teacher, and it was really fun to watch. She spoke to the tomboy and roughness we didn't really have from the group, and it was fun to see the show kind of get turned on its head with the new addition. But in all seriousness, I think Toph also appealed to so many children because she reflected the stage that most of us go through when we are, moving away from the ideologies or direct care of our parents, and we start to spread our wings a little bit. She wanted her parents to see that she wasn't a helpless child anymore. She wanted to be seen as a competent person. And does that not sound like every 13 to 18-year-old you know? Toph is rude and on purpose. She knows what is socially acceptable and rejects it intentionally. I mean, she was a socialite for crying out loud. But when we see her, she is in the process of carving out a space of her own wants, personality, and desires. And there were a lot of growing pains for her through this transition. She learns to stand in her own independence while learning to care about those around her. And that's what makes her so great. And let's not forget that she is also taking down any and everyone that steps in front of her with ease, okay? I mean, damn, the girl created her own earthbending style, in a time of need, and y'all are really not ready to see my girl for real. But she would yell at you, and she would still be, manage to be vulnerable and compassionate with the group. She truly was my hero. I mean, they all were, but this is her video, right? So, to be real, that is kind of why I'm scared for her. And listen, I'm not going to waste your time telling you why I'm so worried. I'm gonna get straight into it, and I have a feeling that most of you know what it is, and a lot of you would be right, and it's this Netflix adaptation. Netflix, please step down. As most of you know, it's on a rampage with churning out as much content as it can and keep people's dollars in their pocket month to month. And the latest show, unfortunately, to get caught in the live action crosshair reboot, whatever you want to call it, is The Avatar. And to be honest, most of the responses to it has been maybe half and half. Some people are happy, or I will say satisfied with the first season, and some people are like me, not really impressed, to be honest. But I was not surprised after I saw what they have been doing with the other properties that they have acquired. But I will get into that later. Well, I think maybe we'll see how this goes. I wish I could act like I really enjoyed this live action, and to be honest, I was really excited for this project at first, right up until I heard that the original creators left the project. They stated that they decided to depart due to creative differences, but unfortunately for me, that was not going to stop me because this was one of my favorite TV shows of all time, so my curiosity was keeping me going, and I was still planning to watch the show with excitement, and I had a lot of hope too. After seeing the cast and some of the set photos, I was ready to go, counting down the days even, and everything was looking beautiful, and it seemed like being hopeful wasn't a bad thing until the different interviews started to come out, and oh boy, were we in for a treat for sure. And as you can see, some of these things really made me scared because the talk about changing the story beats and genre honestly made me kind of scratch my head. Why would anybody want to change the story to a show with ratings like this one? I took a deep breath though, and I tried to come to the realization, right, and the conclusion that it wouldn't be a one-to-one adaptation, and tried to accept it for what it would be on its own, right? But you can imagine the dread that I was experiencing in regards to this information. And to those of you who might read those headlines and go, what's wrong with any of those things? Do not worry, I'm here to tell you. Unfortunately for Netflix, I'm never on the side of corporations taking a lot of money off of the backs of people's art. So I struggle with justifying them trying to age up the story to enhance and entice people to spend money on subscriptions. I was prepared that the story wouldn't be the same beat for beat, but it screams money grab, you know? As someone who enjoys watching TV and movies, I had this sinking feeling that Netflix was getting ready to do what most directors and writers do when they don't have an appreciation for the work that they're adapting. They believe the original story isn't mature enough or that animation's for children, which usually means that they're either going to add death, blood, or sex. Sometimes all three if you're lucky. Whatever. They try to stuff all these ideas and framework into the show, and I like to call it like the redo box, where they generally take the skeleton of the original show and throw it in their own interpretations or water it down to be acceptable for all audiences to consume, not recognizing that the original work already was appropriate, enticing for all ages. I find this to be stupid methodology because it disrespects the original work and insults the audience. And boy, was I correct. And I'm sad to say, after waiting all that time and trying to stay hopeful about the show, that it was just borderline bad. I won't lie. I can't say that it was the worst thing I've ever seen, but I feel like the show is being put in a category of a miss for me, which really breaks my heart because it deserves so much more. And to be honest, this was a miss largely due to the fundamental changes in the characters, clunky dialogue, a bland story, and some of the worst acting I've seen in a while.
Boomy, I can't hold both of them! Help me!
Let it fall. Let it fall. And you win!
All of my worst fears were definitely coming true when I thought about what this adaptation would be. I'm sorry, I gotta get myself together. It just wasn't great. But I will give them their props. I will say one thing I honestly loved was that it looked and sounded beautiful. The costumes, they were so pretty. I can't take that from them. I felt like they visually brought the 2D animation to life, and to be honest, the bending was really good as well. It did get a little wonky at times, but I wasn't mad at it. Like, there's only so much you can do with what we have. So they ate those little things down. I will give you that, Netflix. But outside of that, there were certain elements that I felt were changed. I felt changed the feel and the dynamic of the original story, and I don't know, I just felt unsettled after watching it. I didn't have the same emotional weight I would get when watching, the animated show. I felt like all of the passion that I usually experience from all the characters was just non-existent, leaving me to feel a little disconnected from anything that was gracing my screen, as you would say. The characterization for the majority of the characters were just flat out just wrong, in my opinion. And I usually hate saying if something is just flat out wrong, but I felt like they just sat in the writing room and said to themselves, what is it that makes these characters so special? Is it their morals, their flaws, their courage? Great. Just take all of that, bundle it, and quite literally throw that shit out of the window, okay? And it showed. It really showed in the writing, I feel. Like, one thing I appreciated about the original show was how well it represented women. All of the women on the show were their own people, and that was something that I really did cherish. Though there were love plots in the original show, which some could consider weak, I am not some. The women weren't just there to move along the story or be someone for them to fall in love with, right? Not just counterparts. And that was very present in the new adaptation. In the adaptation, there were shadows of themselves in kind of the worst way. Earlier, I spoke about Katara, and she has to be one of the most egregious adaptations in this remake. Katara may be our girly girl of the group, the mom of the group, as you will, but she was someone who was extremely strong-minded with strong moral ideologies that would not hesitate to take matters into her own hands if she felt like she was doing the right thing. She could be short-tempered and straight up make wrong or bad decisions at times.
Tell me where he is, and I won't hurt you or your brother.
Go jump in the river. The stars sure are beautiful tonight. Too bad you can't see them, Toph.
There. See? The key to bending is...
Will you please shut your air hole?
Tara?
I'll be outside if you're man enough to fight me.
But she was human, and it was so human that anybody could relate to her story and could see themselves in her, especially if you had the sister dynamic she had with Sokka, right? If anyone has a close sibling, you know what it's like to yell and scream about them, at them for 1 second, and then literally another second take care of them. That was something that a lot of people related to, and it made it fun. They had personality. But damn, Netflix, you just took all of that away. In the show, she is kind, but she is very flat. Where is the back and forth with her brother? Where is her fire for wanting to do the right thing? Where's her determination to learn how to waterbend no matter what's happening? All of these things are reduced or straight up erased to nothingness. I don't even know exactly what to call it because it's just not there, and I don't really know why. So I won't make up a reason, but point being, there isn't anything there, and that's very concerning for me because if you can't get the blatant lessons that the animated show is trying to convey with Katara's arc, how are you going to be able to depict the subtleties of Toph's arc in the second season, right? Toph learns that freedom doesn't necessarily mean that you don't care about anybody at all, but it's allowing yourself to be yourself while also relying on others. And that is a strong character moment for her throughout the show. She learns that she, as she travels with the group, that vulnerability and empathy could be a good thing and not something that holds her back. We see this transition when we first see her and how rude she is to the group when she is around, and she refuses to help out, and she's very hell-bent on doing her own thing. She wants people to know that she doesn't need anybody. She doesn't want the help. But the more time that she spends with the group, you see that she's learning how to be vulnerable, and that will not cause her to be put in this helpless box that they found her in, right? And that she is stronger. She's becoming stronger because she's allowing others to help her, and she helps them and becomes an even bigger force in the process. The writing is A1. Please go watch the original show. I don't know what else to tell you, but we see her full transition when she is the person to remind the group that we shouldn't discard Zuko immediately. She vouches for him. We see her opening up, acknowledging their faults, but also accepting that people are flawed and to allow them to come as they are, knowing that they can grow. Now, do I think that Netflix will be able to handle this? Absolutely not. They can't even commit to Zuko being an absolutely unhinged villain in the first season, or Sokka being a mini, incel and learning how not to be one. So I don't know or think that they will be able to handle my girl Toph very well. Side note, Zuko baby, I'm sorry for what they did to you. You don't deserve what they did, and I'm sorry on behalf of fans, truly. But I do fear that they will make Toph such a hard character and completely erase her soft side. But I also don't want them to create her and be a live action Katara Part 2. Soft, no flaws, and really uninspiring, to be honest. I don't want to just dump on the live action and make it seem like this character is easy to portray, because it's not. Even through the run of the animation series, it seemed like some of the audience had a hard time trying to see Toph for who she really was, and her personal growth throughout the show as well. Her character sometimes gets watered down to, haha, she's a badass who likes to break rules, and she's really rough, blah, 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 blah. But I believe that there's a lot more to Toph than, just her wild side. And she deserves to be recognized for her whole self, right? And I'm hoping Netflix will hear the cries of the fans and, take change course. And I don't know. I just don't understand how they're choosing to depict the characters when it's laid out for you. And it's been praised for years, a decade plus even. I think that the live action show has the potential to grow and make these corrections since it's still in the first season. But I think that it's up to Daddy Netflix to allow the show to take notes from the responses that they're giving and pivot really hard to make the show worth tuning into. It is currently relying on the morals and the good grace that the original animation has created for them. This adaptation insists upon itself, but it rings hollow because it does not put in the work to create and execute the tension or the emotional weight that the original so effortlessly implements with its characters and storytelling. The Netflix creators have shown us that they are willing to move things around for their benefit, which wouldn't be a bad thing if it was not for the fact that our favorite characters were being butchered. And if you know, Boomy baby. Please. Anyway, moving on. This show and its characters are so important to people, and I feel as though it is unfair for those companies to take hold of these stories and not care about the work that they're putting into their adaptations. It's just not fair. And some people might think it's silly to care this much. It's only a TV show, etc., etc. But these shows mean something to people, and they taught important lessons and helped shape the minds of everyone, young and old, that ended up watching these shows. Do not remake beloved shows if you aren't going to handle things with care, please, because kids and adults deserve to see themselves represented with duality, and these characters offer that thing. But if you're taking it away, how are they going to be able to do that? And it's a shame that this goal is replaced with making things go boom, right? Art is so important in all forms, and it really touches so many people and it transforms lives, truly. But I find that recently things like subscription services and streaming things, have lost the original plot of what we're supposed to be doing and are the driving force behind taking these beloved IPs and kind of running them to hell, won't lie. Now, Netflix, this is your time to prove me wrong. Please allow the writers the time to take this beautiful story and characters within it and create something that pays homage, but is also transformative. You can do both. I know you can do it. I've seen you do it. So just do it. Allow it. Sorry, tangent. Anyways, thank you all for taking the time to watch my video. I really appreciate the support and would love if you could continue with me on this journey by clicking subscribe and the like button. Thank you all so very much, and I will be back soon. Mwah.